On the edge of the Borneo rainforest in Indonesia, there's a school like no other, where the class is made up of rescued orphaned orangutans. They're here to learn skills so important it will make the difference between life and death. But for a devoted team of vets and keepers, looking after an unruly gang of orangutans isn't easy.
It's a challenge. There's no book, how to rehabilitate an orangutan.
At the end of the day, if I'm covered in poop and pee and sweat, I consider it a good day.
The goal is simple, that every orphan will learn the ways of the forest, to climb a tree and forage for themselves, and eventually be given a second chance to be released and live in the wild again.
Finally, we got the chance to give him his freedom again. Final, total freedom.
In Borneo, West Kalimantan, the rehabilitation of orangutans starts early each day. In charge of the centre is Spanish vet Carmela Sanchez. She's dedicated the last 10 years of her life to saving wildlife in Indonesia.
We are now going to take the orangutans out. There is one orangutan who is the naughty one, so you have to be careful. Hello, Melky. Hello, Melky. We try to get the orangutans out in the forest as soon as possible when the sun rises.
Orangutans are close relatives of ours and prone to our diseases, so the staff wear masks to protect them. With over 60 orangutans in their care, getting the younger ones to school in the morning is a challenge.
We use the wheelbarrows because it's just an easier way to take them all in the forest. It's like little children, they all want to do their own thing.
Okay. This group is the biggest orangutan in the forest. They're more naughty, more aggressive. It's more challenge to put them back to the forest.
The orangutans head off to the forest to learn the vital skills their mothers would have taught them to survive in the wild. The ones with the most to learn are in baby school. Vet Christine leads the class.
Baby school is definitely an interesting place. That's kind of where maybe the bulk of our rehabilitation takes place, but it kind of is its own living, breathing machine.
Christine has left behind her life in Wisconsin, USA, to help with the orphans' recovery.
Yeah, so this is breakfast for them, and we've got it tied to trees, basically to get them up and climbing and searching for food in the trees.
For a baby orangutan, the most dangerous place to be is on the ground, as they are prone to predators. So lesson 1, the most important lesson, is getting off the ground and up into the trees.
You can see the heights marked on the trees. We basically need to know at what heights they're hanging out. If they're more likely to be on the ground, then they're probably not as ready to go to the forest.
Top of the class is 3-year-old Joyce, the oldest and largest baby.
Joyce is up there in the top of the tree, and I'm not sure if she's ready to make a nest yet, but it's a good sign that she's up and climbing.
But some still have a lot to learn. Though they might seem carefree, they all have a tragic background. They're orphans and the victims of rainforest destruction. Orangutans are now on the brink of extinction. Their homes have been cleared for logging and palm oil production. Unless they're rescued, the adults are often killed and the babies sold into the illegal pet trade.
Before we even talk about rehabilitation, we have to rescue them. We rescue all these orangutans from death.
But they're wild animals, and the team from International Animal Rescue must be skilled in the use of anesthetic dart guns to sedate the adults before rescuing them.
We also rescue a lot of orangutans from misery, you know, from cages, chains, and from horrible, horrible situations that you even wonder how an orangutan can survive.
Many bear the scars of their captivity. Rukina has a head wound from a machete that most likely killed her mother. Since arrival at the centre, she's turned to classmate Rocky for support, and they've become inseparable. Close bonds often form between the orphans. Not surprising, as in the wild they would live with their mothers for up to 8 years. Longer than any other great ape.
It's curious, some of the relationships that form, they often get really close. It's a way of comforting each other, but it's also good to see them kind of find their own way and gain some independence.
To encourage the babies to climb high into the trees where they would naturally spend most of their lives requires some coaxing. That's a job for Lisa Burtonshaw, who sold her business in the UK to take charge of enrichment for the orangutans.
They are very clever. I think they associate me with enrichment. And it's that thing, as soon as I show up anywhere, it's like, oh, what's she got for us today?
The tasty treats today are logs filled with porridge and honey.
Yeah, porridge and honey, they love it, but yeah, you get absolutely covered. And then you attract bees and wasps. And surprisingly, a lot of orangutans, when they arrive, are actually quite frightened of tree climbing and don't like the heights. So we do everything we can to encourage them to climb the trees. Hello. And they've got to be able to climb like an orangutan to fit this one on. There we go. Here we've got Joyce and Gunung. Now Joyce seems more intent on actually getting the dipping log down itself rather than what's in it. They're up off the floor, they're in the trees, they're interested in their enrichment.
Foraging in a rotten tree trunk might land these babies a tasty meal of termites. It's an important lesson for the future, and it means they're off the ground.
Rukina.
Rocky and Rukina are still not rising to the challenge, so Lisa gives them a helping hand.
Rukina is actually quite a good climber when she puts her mind to it, but unfortunately Rocky tends to pull her down out the trees a lot. Yeah, they've still got a long way to go yet.
High flyer Joyce has pretty much mastered the tree climbing lessons of baby school. But vet Siska has noticed she's also being held back.
Joyce here, she has a boyfriend named Gunung, and I saw that Joyce is actually, she wants to explore, but Gunung hold her because Gunung is still afraid, but as you see, Joyce is quite a personality.
Wherever Joyce goes, love-struck Gunung is never far behind. The lessons of the forest can be tiring for young babies. And by afternoon, they've worn out the class and it's home time. But there's a problem. 8 babies went out and there's only 6 coming home. Joyce has led boyfriend Gunung off into the forest.
Pulang! Joyce! Yeah. The two who have gone to play a little bit far are Joyce and Gunung, and they seem to be the best of friends these days. Yeah. No! So they're getting a little bit more adventurous, but as orphans, they need that extra care at night, so it wouldn't be safe for them to stay on their own. I'm just trying to get some eyes on them before they go too far.
The two babies have never spent the night in the forest on their own, and they do not have the skills to survive.
Joyce!
Christine must track them down before darkness falls.
Gunung!
In Borneo, at the International Animal Rescue Center, two of the baby orangutans are missing.
You can hear Gunung making some noises. He's crying a little bit.
Gunung's high-pitched cries lead Christine to the two runaways.
See? They're hanging out in this tree, just kind of looking at me like they don't really care to come home. They love to toy with us.
Babies would normally spend the night in nests, protected by their mothers.
I know. Come on.
But these two orphans, at less than 3 years old, are still too young to sleep out in the forest.
Pulang.
To tempt them down, Christine tries a little bribery.
We've got a little bit of juice and some fruit to try and entice them in. I thought so. She's notoriously thirsty.
Joyce takes the bait and leads Gunung down. He's still clinging on.
Works every time. The adventurous twosome today.
It's a good sign that babies Joyce and Gunung are showing some independence. The next phase of their rehabilitation, forest school, will be much tougher.
This is the second grade school where they can start tasting what it is to be free and tasting what it is to be in a forest.
Forest school is a class of nearly 50 juvenile orangutans. Older and stronger, they aren't afraid of a little rough and tumble.
So you can see it's a challenge here because they all start to be quite naughty.
It's the school of hard knocks, where they must master the art of life in the trees and the essential skills of foraging for food and building a nest for the night.
We can never replace a mother. We are never going to be able to teach them.
There are some forest skills the humans cannot teach. Building a nest in the wild is passed down from generation to generation. Here, they can only learn from each other.
Actually, when orangutans in this area make a nest and decide to stay overnight in the forest, we don't force them to go back to the cages. We are actually very pleased because, this is an indication that there is some progress.
But even if they have worked out how to build their own bed for the night, it doesn't necessarily mean they get to sleep in it. Penny gets herself comfortable, but she's in for a rude awakening. When larger and more aggressive Prima moves in. It's a tough life in the trees. And for new arrivals like Santi, rehabilitation can be a steep learning curve.
Santi is just in the first stages of the rehabilitation because we rescued her. It's one of the last orangutans that we've rescued.
Santi was brought into the centre 5 months ago. Yet another abandoned pet. Fed on a diet of cakes and bread, her only future was a slow death in a cage.
Apparently the owner didn't want to take care of her anymore because according to the owner, well, it was too expensive.
Santi spent 2 months in quarantine. Now, after 3 months playing in the forest, she's graduated from baby school. But her lost years as a pet means she still has a huge amount to learn.
For an orangutan that has never been in the forest, it's a long process of learning, so the rehabilitation is challenging. Some of them are just too dependent on humans. But yeah, I think Santi is gonna have probably 3-4 years ahead to complete her rehabilitation.
But Santi does have a natural advantage over her male classmates.
Girls do much better than boys, for the obvious reasons. They spend much more time on the top of the tree, they are more independent. It's always the boys that tend to be naughty, bite all the time, biting, spending a lot of time on the ground. Oh!
So the biggest challenge for the team is to get the male orangutans schooled in the rules of the wild before they become too big and dangerous to manage. Like tough guy Melky.
Melky is the king of all the juvenile orangutans here. He's the dominant one. We have to be very delicate because when he gets upset, he can get aggressive.
Melky was rescued from the large city of Pontianak 4 years ago, and just like Santi, had little idea of what it was to be an orangutan. A slow learner, Melky is now the oldest in his class and uses his size to get his own way. But it's around dinner time where he earns his school bully title. But if Melky is ever to be released, he will have to know how to fend for himself. Already 7 years old, Melky is running out of time.
Melky is getting to an age in which he will have to learn faster. We need him to speed up the process of rehabilitation. We want him to spend more time foraging on the top of the trees.
If Melky doesn't change his ways and learn to be self-reliant, the team won't be able to release him, and he faces the rest of his life in a cage. Every day, there are new arrivals. While the other orangutans play in the forest, the rescued newcomers must stay inside until they have a clean bill of health.
In quarantine at the moment, we have 2 little babies. If there's anything that can put the rest of the population in danger, we basically make sure that they're free of those diseases before they can be introduced.
These 2 babies are Bonita and Anjas.
Okay, Anjas.
Anjas was rescued from a life as a pet, and today will undergo a series of medical tests to make sure he's not a risk to the rest of the population.
Anjas is kind of a special case. He came to us from the pet trade, and for about 3 years he was owned by a couple near Pontianak.
Treated like a human baby, Anjas lived a life far removed from that of a wild orangutan.
Saya ikhlas melepaskan dia gitu. Padahal dia saya anggap seperti bayi saya sendiri.
But despite all the attention, his human owner could have been killing him with kindness. He was bathed, clothed, and had an unhealthy human diet high in starchy rice, washed down with sweet tea.
Certainly we all care for the orangutans here, but in a different way, where we want them to exist in their natural habitat.
Now Anjas must have a full medical check under anesthetic to reveal any health problems caused by a life with humans. An examination reveals his captivity led to an injury to his foot.
Looks like he had a strangulating injury, maybe a string or something got wrapped around his foot, his toe, so he's unable to kind of straighten this one.
This could be a problem if he is to learn to climb trees.
This is what we're going to take some x-rays of just to make sure there's no changes in his bones. X-ray.
His rich diet has left a worrying legacy of tooth decay.
He used to drink a lot of sweet tea too, so.
Sweet tea in the morning, and then he eat like the chocolate snacks.
But the biggest risk of captivity is disease. Orangutans share 97% of our DNA, and Anjas may have caught a human infection that could be deadly to the center's orangutan population.
Probably the most important testing that we do is for tuberculosis.
To test if Anjas harbors the deadly disease, they inject into his delicate eyelid skin an antigen that should show if he's been exposed to TB.
Looks a little odd, but it's probably the most sensitive area to gauge a reaction on an orangutan.
The other baby in quarantine is Bonita. She's already had her tests and is waiting on the results. Christine decides to give her some time outside of her cage.
While they're being monitored for their health, they don't get the chance to kind of experience the trees, so we try to take them to this area so that they can get a little practice. And mostly, the ones that come from the pet trade are unaware they're orangutans. They've never been in a tree.
Before arriving at the center, home for Bonita was a mining camp and a life in chains. Now she must take the first steps to freedom and a life in the trees.
So I'm just using the porridge, kind of made it sticky so that I can put it in the trees and kind of encourage her to be up there. But it's a long process. This is kind of a baby step.
The porridge does the trick, and she cautiously makes a move.
Bonita is definitely attached to humans. She needs that security a little bit, that contact. So she's not quite as outgoing as others, but she'll get there.
Finally, the instinct kicks in, and she's soon at home in the branches.
Feeling frisky. Woo, that one's not strong enough. It's another thing they have to learn.
But if Bonita is to join the others in baby school and start the lengthy process of learning how to live in the forests of Borneo, she will need to pass all of her health checks. The team of vets and keepers are struggling to cope with a group of orangutans that are getting too big for forest school, but have yet to master the skills of the wild. To spare them from a life behind bars, Carmela's team have undertaken a bold experiment.
Now this is a new stage. It's a whole new area of opportunities for us.
Using an excavator to dig a canal, in just a few months they carved an island nearly 15 acres in size that's to act as a stepping stone to freedom.
Rather than a caged orangutan, it's a caged forest.
If it works, the island will be a finishing school for the big bruisers who still have more to learn, but who need their independence.
Getting the island is almost like a dream coming true, you know?
Now, an army of volunteers are in the final stages of construction. Orangutans rarely swim, but as a precaution, they're installing an electrified perimeter fence.
We're cementing in the posts today, which are going to be for the electric fence, one extra deterrent to keep the orangutan on the island. The logistics of everything out here has been so difficult because of the size of the island and it's not easy access to get here. Everything we've had to carry over by hand, literally carrying over a log.
So we're just starting to put the electric wire around. Obviously, we've got to get it all the way around in a circuit of the island. We're going to put 3 different lines on. So that makes about 3.6 kilometres we've got to go. And then when we're ready, we can put the energizer on and electrify the wire.
With over 2 miles of wire to go, the volunteers need to get a move on, as the island has already caught the eye of a couple of escapees from forest school.
Bunga, dari sini! There are a couple of orangutans from the forest school. It's actually Bunga and Amin. Both of them are particularly naughty, and they are the ones that always leave the group and they want to explore further. That's why actually they are potential candidates to go on this island, because once they are on the island, there's no way for them to escape. They are basically here on their own. It's fine. There is quite enough water now. They are not going to be able to cross. Okay, let's go, because they are calling them, so they know already.
Carmela wants to have the island safe haven ready for the more difficult orangutans as soon as possible. She's all too aware of what a life in captivity means.
Hi, big boy. Hey. This is Monte. This is our biggest orangutan. Only males have cheek pads. Basically, the cheek pads is a way that they show their dominance. So Monte, he's really the king of our center. He's the biggest, the strongest, and he's also very handsome. If I was a female orangutan, I would probably fall for him.
Monte was rescued 4 years ago. Since he was a baby, he was kept in a cage so small he couldn't stand up. And as a result, his legs have been permanently damaged.
Monte had spent in captivity his whole life, probably 13 to 15 years. His legs didn't function properly. I remember he was moved in the cage and his legs were trembling.
Aged nearly 20, he's too old to learn the ways of the forest. Even here at the center, Monte has to be kept in a large cage for the safety of those caring for him. Adult orangutans can be up to 7 times stronger than a human.
This orangutan with just one hand will just probably break my neck, basically, you know. He's very, very strong. So, you know, we cannot just take him from the hand and take him to the forest like we do with the juveniles or the babies, you know. Unfortunately, we don't think that he will be a candidate to be released into the wild. He's never been in a forest. So I do not think that he will be able to find food. He wouldn't be able to survive. There's never a cage big enough, you know, for an orangutan, but we are hoping that we can actually give Monte a much better life.
For Monte, rescue came far too late. But the team has recently recovered another fully grown male they've called Kaliba, who is now ready to be released to a new forest home.
Kaliba is now at the quarantine. I want to go and have a look very quietly. I don't want to disturb him because tonight he's going to have a long journey all the way to the release site. But I just want to check on his condition.
Kaliba has been kept in isolation at the center for 2 months, while the team checked he's disease-free and searched for a safe habitat for him. He was rescued from an area nearby that used to be forest, but had been almost completely cleared for farmland. In situations like this, due to loss of habitat, orangutans and humans often come into conflict, competing for space and food. If the rescue team don't anesthetize and remove the orangutan from that environment, it stands little chance of survival. As Kaliba is from the wild and knows how to survive, he doesn't need rehabilitation, just a new forest to call home. Carmela has found a release site, but it takes 12 hours to get there, and the relocation of a fully grown male can be dangerous.
He's obviously a very strong orangutan, and there's always a risk when we handle orangutans this big, potentially aggressive as well. And we always have to be very careful.
For the safety of Kaliba and the team, they will wait until the cool of night to undertake the risky operation. It's late afternoon, and vet Christine has just received some good news about one of their new babies, Bonita.
Bonita's been in quarantine for about 7 weeks. It's about time for her to move on. She passes quarantine.
After a lifetime surrounded by humans, Bonita must now begin to discover how to be an orangutan at baby school.
Hello, Rocky and Regina.
Bonita is introduced to the other babies. It's the first time she comes face to face with her classmates.
See, she's pretty clingy with the babysitter now. I think she's curious. That's a good indicator that she'll take a little bit of time, but I think she'll get used to everybody and start climbing pretty soon. There we go.
Slowly, Bonita takes her first brave steps into the trees to join the others.
Bonita's chances for a release are looking pretty good. You know, in a few minutes she's starting to climb. So after the entire rehabilitation process, I think she'll be ready.
Bonita will stay here, and I guess Bonita will have like a free life, like in the forest. She deserves to have it.
For Bonita, these are the first steps on a journey that may take 4 years of playing and learning in the trees before she's ready to be released. That time has now come for Kaliba, an adult male orangutan who has just cleared quarantine. To minimize risk, the operation to transport him to a release site will take place in the cool of night, when he's more likely to sleep. The full team of vets and keepers have been called in just in case anything goes wrong.
We always have to be careful. It's a wild orangutan, and an orangutan this big could potentially break up the transport cage, and you know, that could be a big problem.
First, Kaliba must be sedated so he can be moved and safely undergo a medical check.
We have to blow dart him, and as soon as he's sedated, we're gonna bring him here, put him in the transport cage.
The team must get him into his cage before the drugs wear off and he wakes up for the long journey. So the most difficult task for vet Christine is to administer Kaliba with the right dose of anesthetic.
The anesthetic is kind of one of the most particular parts of this whole process. There's always lots of concerns with moving a big orangutan, because if they wake up, they could do some damage.
To make the task even more difficult, Christine must hit Kaliba with an anaesthetic blow dart in almost total darkness.
Okay, he's awake.
It's pretty difficult to see, but I think the dark went in, so we're timing him now. Hopefully he'll fall asleep soon.
Finally, Kaliba is asleep and can be moved. The team must conduct a quick medical check before he wakes up.
He's breathing okay, his heart is stable. Yeah, he's doing all right.
Kaliba is given the reversal drug to counteract the anaesthetic.
We want to make sure that he's somewhat awake for the journey so that he doesn't have any problems in the cage that we would have to intervene for.
He's woken up very quickly, so I think he's doing all right.
Awake and in his transport cage, Kaliba begins the long journey back to freedom. The team must drive through the night to reach an area of forest that is big enough for a new adult orangutan.
It is not easy to find a release site nowadays because all the forest is being wiped out. So actually, this orangutan was rescued just about 7 kilometers away from the center. And we have to take him all the way down to this location because around the area there is no more forest.
The race is on, as they can only keep Kaliba calm in his cage for so long. After a long night on the road, they've reached Mount Tarak, that borders a national park with over 200,000 acres of protected forest.
Yeah, he's fine. He's a bit stressed out, yeah. Focalizing quite a lot. But he's doing pretty well. He's not trying to break the cage, which is already quite good.
They've hired a team of local porters to carry Kaliba the 3 miles to the release site.
But these guys are quite used to it, and they have helped us before, so we're pretty confident. They are really good. You'll see it.
At approximately 25 years old, Kaliba weighs nearly 130 pounds, but his reinforced cage is another 200.
We are almost ready to go now. We left last night at around 12 in the evening, and now it's like 9 in the morning. It's been already 9 hours in the transport cage. So now the priority is to try to reach the release site as soon as possible. Yeah, but what they are doing is amazing, you know. They are taking in their shoulders 150 kilograms. You know, some of them are barefoot. I think it's amazing, you know, what they do.
Before bringing Kaliba here, Dr. Gail Campbell-Smith and her team studied every aspect of the forest to be sure it can safely support the survival of a new orangutan.
And I've been looking at what's been fruiting, and at the moment it's really a lot of fruit. So for Kaliba to come here, it's a very, very good choice. There is a wild population here, but it's quite low. So, you know, he stands a good chance of getting in here and finding his own range, which is super important for orangutans, especially for the males.
12 hours after leaving the rescue centre, they finally reach the release site. A section of forest with enough fruit and food sources to sustain Kaliba.
Maju. Ya, tapi nanti karena mungkin kita bersihkan di situ dulu. Ya. We think this is a good spot. There are a couple of trees like this durian tree that is good food for the orangutans. They love durians. So the idea is that we are gonna open the cage and he will climb that tree. Although probably he's gonna go totally the other way. I'm quite nervous. I mean, not really nervous, he's excited or something.
Yep.
Are you ready? Okay. See up. Aduh. I knew it.
Wow.
They always go the opposite side where we want to go. We go up in this tree. This is the moment that we were looking forward to for such a long time.
Rescued from almost certain death, Kaliba's return to the wild paves the way for more from the rescue center.
To be able to release an orangutan and see the orangutan doing well, this is what it keeps us going, you know, and gives us hope. Finally, we got the chance to give him his freedom again.
Final, total freedom.
Bye-bye, Kaliba.
It may take years, but Carmela and the team are working to release every orangutan currently in baby and forest school back to the wild. With a clean bill of health and now out of quarantine, Anjas is making his first steps in baby school.
We found Bonita here.
Bonita proved to be a fast learner, and after just 3 days is already climbing high in forest school.
I think she's very brave because she's gonna be the smallest in the group of the juveniles.
And finally, the island is ready for its first orangutan.
Welcome. Hope you like it.